Welcome back. Now, the big story that we are focusing on, nutritional labeling on packaged food, is now set to get bigger and bolder. The Food Safety and Standard Authority of India has approved changes to make salt, sugar, and saturated fat clearer to read for the consumer. Now, the FSSAI will issue a draft notification on this and seek comments from stakeholders. The food regulator said that the amendment aims to empower consumers to better understand the nutritional value of the product they are consuming and make healthier decisions. The regulator said that the amendment would also contribute towards efforts to combat the rise of non-communicable diseases and promote public health and well-being. Let me go across to my guest joining me to discuss more on this very important development coming in. We have joined by Dr. Manjari Chandra, Consultant Nutritional Medicine at the Max Healthcare, and also Bijan Mishra, Consumer Rights Activist at this point as well. Bijan Mishra, coming to you first. This is a very important step, especially in the light of what we have seen in the case of false advertising many times in the name of fake health rings in terms of advertising, in terms of false advertising and having harmful content. Do you feel that this is a move in the right direction?
Yes, of course, Dhanshu, it's a step in the right direction. It's never too late. We have been asking this to happen for the last 10 years. We have been convincing the regulator that these kind of communications are very important to the consumers, to empower them and differentiate between healthy products and unhealthy products, and be able to understand what they should consume and what they should not consume. Well, what I am only concerned about is we have had such consultations several times in the past also. I hope this gets into a fast track, and gets implemented soon, because, now they will again seek comments. Then there will be a committee which will go into all that long-drawn bureaucratic processes. I strongly feel that we have to cut these bureaucratic processes and go on a fast-track mode, because every day matters. You do not understand the seriousness in terms of how innocent consumers are becoming victims of non-communicable disease because they are completely unaware about what is being sold to them, and how they are becoming victims of such unhealthy products. And as you know, in 2006, when the Food Safety Authority was born, it was born to promote in terms of promoting wholesome food. How do you do that? That is the biggest challenge we have in front of us, to make people understand who do not, understand the seriousness of such matters and become victims of such diseases which could have been avoidable, and then land up in the hospitals, spending a lot of their hard-earned money in terms of treatment. So we need the regulator to now become proactive. You see, we want that there should be full-time chairperson in the Food Safety Authority. We want experts to be there, to make things happen on a fast track. We are not wanting to see every time that we are headless. We have lots of vacancies in the authority. Things are not moving on a pace which we want to make it happen. These are big challenges. And we as consumer groups have been doing this right from 2006. We worked so hard to bring this law. We worked so hard to bring this authority in place. Why? To protect the consumer, to make the industry behave in terms of ethical practices. But as we all know, that it is not happening on the ground, and people are becoming victims. But in any case, I'm happy that it has moved, and I'm happy that you are covering this story to reach out to your viewers and educate them that how serious is this matter, and it needs to be brought on a fast track mode.
Absolutely, and all thanks to activists such as you, Bijan Mishra, who ensured that these important transparency pushes are enforced to the ground. I'm also being joined by Revant Himmat Singha, who's a health and nutrition influencer. Revant, thank you for joining us on Mirror Now. Welcome to the show as well. This is a step in the right direction at a time when more Indians are understanding the importance of health and nutrition, especially in the light of a recent WHF report, which has highlighted how urban Indians most of them are inactive and suffer from obesity-related comorbidities. This is a step in the right direction here. At least we should now be able to know exactly what we are putting into our bodies in the form of food and other supplements.
Yes, 100%. I completely support this particular initiative by the government. And I've always said I'm not against junk food. I'm against junk food marketing itself as healthy. As long as the consumers are able
Yeah.
to make an informed choice, it's fine. So this is a good step because the consumers will know now how much salt, sugar, and fat there is. And as long as now, if a consumer then willingly chooses to buy it, then it's upon the consumer. But at least the customer should be very well aware. So I completely support this move, and it's a very, very good step in the right direction. If I may add one more thing, I have said this many, many times in the past, and I want to reiterate it again, is that most nutrition labels are in English, but only 10-15% of India understands how to read English. So if there can be a QR code or something which can help the consumer scan the label and then translate the label in their local language, that could be helpful, because currently the claims that are made by the companies like high protein or low sugar may not be understood by someone who does not know English. So I think that is a different thing which the government should
Absolutely.
also look into. But currently, this particular action, I wholly support it.
Absolutely, Revant, and that's a very important point as well that you have raised, that it should be made accessible in more languages as well, so that more Indians can also understand and be aware of what exactly they're consuming here. But Dr. Manjari Chandra, this reminds me of another similar campaign that has been done in terms of putting out these health and statutory warnings on cigarette packs and on alcohol bottles as well, to a point, if I'm not mistaken right now, the current laws say that 50% of cigarette packages should have the statutory warning label on it. Yet, do you believe that there has been any study to show that that has actually dissuaded people from giving up smoking? Because from what I've seen around me, most people are, especially for instance smokers, they're aware of the health hazards of smoking, but they continue with it. Do you feel that there may be a similar problem in this case as well, that people who are consuming the food, junk food, will continue to do so despite being told very clearly about the hazards of the food they're consuming?
Yeah, Ritankshu, I think that's a good point to make. See, the thing is, you said 50%, it's not 50%, it's 70% of the cigarette pack has to
Yeah.
bear this very strong image saying that this can lead to cancer and oral conditions. However, as you correctly said, smoking does not cease, or people don't give up on smoking with that packaging. The same could apply to this. Having said that, from the regulatory bit, the regulatory authority has to do their bit of, of putting this out. I think one of the things in trade practice, specifically with fast-moving consumer goods, is that the leeway that is given and the profitability that is there in this business, it becomes very difficult for, and the ease of consumption for the consumer, it's quite a difficult
Yeah.
thing to break out of, whatever warnings or, nutritional information on the labeling you do. I don't think it's going to deter many people from still picking it up. Having said that, does not mean that the label should not have the right information and warning should not be there. Just one more thing here, we do a lot of, when we see sick people, cancer, autoimmunity, all forms of cardiometabolic diseases in our clinical settings, those people are ready to, I mean, they literally say, we'll eat anything you tell us, as long as we can save ourselves from the disease. The problem is, people become mindful of things and do action only when it's already crossed a certain threshold. I think one more thing about
Yeah.
about the regulatory bit is the education bit. I wish we were telling our small children what is it that they're eating and how it's going to impact their health in adult life, or even in their younger years. That conversation is still not happening fully, and a lot of marketing to children and
Exactly.
impressionable young adults is what also needs to change it to some extent.
That's a fantastic point you have raised, Dr. Manjari Chandra, and I would like to bring in Revant as well on that. Revant, this is where people like you who have a lot of influence on social media come in at this point, because as Dr. Chandra pointed out, the regulator can only go so far in order to try and make people aware of the benefits and the not so good benefits of what the food they're consuming here. But it's very important also to spread awareness on social media, but also through traditional forms of education as well, especially kids, especially impressionable young adults, to make them more aware of the benefits of the food they're having.
No, I 1000% agree. And I strongly have advocated for this many, many times on why and health should be a part of the school curriculum. Just the way we study history, geography, integration, differentiation, we should be studying about health and nutrition in the school. And the unfortunate thing is that we often focus on diabetic patients who are like in their 40s and 50s and 60s, but we don't teach people who are 5 and 7 and 10 years old on what you can eat so that you don't get diabetes when you're 40. So I strongly believe in this, and I also personally speak at a lot of schools and colleges and things like that, and speak to children. And when you speak to children, and it has to be in the language they understand. So you need to make it relatable, you need to make it fun, not preachy. But I strongly believe that ICSE, CBSE, and every single school board should introduce health in the school curriculum.
Absolutely. But Dr. Manjari Chandra, that also brings me to another important concern. It's not just about the lack of information, but also the lack of correct information here. And what we have seen, and it's very similar to what we saw in terms of the sudden explosion in terms of awareness and attention on mental health also, often the wrong information gets filtered through, and that it's very important to correct that as well. For instance, there's this massive obsession over keto diets, over intermittent fasting. The fact is that they're not suited for every single person at every stage of life, depending on their health conditions as well. So, Dr. Chandra, do you also believe that it's important to also put across the right information so as to not make health and nutrition be some sort of a social media trend which people likely to jump onto the bandwagon just because they want to be trendy and with the current times?
That's correct. That's absolutely okay. Okay to say, because I mean, any form of fad diet or any form of trendy diet that you talk about, obviously, it's not that these things are not scientific. There's science to every format of nutritional advice. Having said that, it's not suitable for everybody. Also, people who are not really sick need to take it from the top of understanding that what is their lifestyle and what is the food that goes along with it. It's not just about the fact that children should not be eating cookies and chips. Children who are sedentary and are and on their gadgets and don't get much physical activity as it is don't need to snack. So a lot of parents don't even know that there is no requirement for continuous snacking for children. And once the snacks are there, normally we look at only packaged snacks. There's a lot of scope to improve our food. One small thing to understand here is that this is not rocket science. And if you could just go back to basics of understanding the cues of hunger and satiety and nutritionally dense food that was made in our native settings, that was our original food. If you could just go back a little bit there and get back to basics, it would be much more easy to implement and much more easy to explain also. Sadly, in the modern day, parents also try to look for quick fixes for fixing snacks and meals for their own children because of paucity of time and things like that. So there is a lot of behavioral intervention that is also required besides information being doled out.
Indeed. Bijan Mishra, I'll come back to you for the last word. Of course, the overall issue, the story which we are focusing upon is the FSSAI's decision to come out with nutritional components being put in bigger and bolder letters. From what we have been reading, there has been a pushback already from the FMCG industry in terms of the implementation of this decision at this point here. Do you anticipate similar pushbacks coming in from the corporate lobbies who perhaps would not have it in their best commercial interest to put the information out in public domain?
For sure. This is obvious. You see, the point which I have tried to make in my opening remark is that the regulator has to be insulated from such influences. We have to ensure that the regulator works in a neutral, independent, autonomous manner, which is not happening, unfortunately. There is too much. That's why it's taking time. I'm telling you, We are working on this for the last 10 years. Now, finally, they've woken up and they've brought this regulation, or they're proposing to bring this regulation. Now, how long it will take, we don't know. And what we are trying to say, along with this regulation, you, like my panel members said, you have to develop a good communication strategy. You see, you can't pile on
That's
a
true.
child to teach them something which they're seeing that the adults are accepting and adopting. So they learn from the elders.
Yeah.
The children learn from elders. How do you teach them? You have to start from your family. You have to start from your home. You have to start from where, once they learn how to understand and recognize, they have to be taught from that time. It can't be burdened on a school. Already the children are burdened, overburdened. In fact, let me tell you, in the school, the curriculum. And now you want to again burden the poor child. Please burden the parents now. It's their job. It's their responsibility. Please make, communication strategy that how you would influence people to ensure that what you are bringing out, people can recognize. For the last 10 years, we are talking about the traffic signal, labeling, where a layman who can't read and write can understand where to stay away, from which food to stay away. So that, if it is in red, you be careful. If it is green, it is good for you. If it is yellow, it is so and so. You see, the point which we are trying to say, in the developed countries, they have brought in some very easy, recognizable labeling information. And in countries like India, we need it badly.
Yes.
Like we did for vegetarian, non-vegetarian
Absolutely.
ingredients in the food. India is the only one of the countries which is having that kind of a labeling, which was so useful and so beneficial to the consumers who were, merrily eating biscuits which had non-vegetarian ingredients. And then, it all happened during Vajpayee's regime.
Okay.
We brought this labeling. Why? Because
All right.
the Prime Minister was involved. He came in and intervened.
That's a very
And that is
important
what-
point. That's a very important point, Bijan Mishra, and we have to take it forward. This is just a first step. It has to be a comprehensive strategy, as Dr. Manjari and Revant pointed out. It also has to be backed up with a proper communication and awareness campaign as well amongst young adults and amongst parents and among kids. But it also, in terms of rules and regulations, also it has to be just the first step. Thank you so much, my guests, for joining me at this point.